Hello, everyone, and welcome to Hit and Hustle from IRSportsDaily.com. I'm your host, Greg Flammang, and with me, as always, is Jamie Uyeyama, Mr. Jamie University. It is Wednesday, March 19th. Notre Dame opens spring practice today. The media got to see the first four periods. A little bit of, I don't want to say news, just some interesting things that the media was able to see in terms of who was lining up where and things of that nature. We'll talk about that. And also, Marcus Freeman spoke in the press conference, the first time he spoke to the media since the national title game. So we'll talk about those comments and a whole bunch of things related to spring practice. Also, Notre Dame's personnel department has been finalized, so we'll talk about that as well. So thank you, everyone, for tuning in today. If you like what you hear, please hit the like button. Please hit subscribe. Please hit the notification bell. So whatever it is, we are going live. Links to the podcast are in the description below. And as always, the show is brought to you by ESQ Clothing, founded by Notre Dame alum Ge Wang. You've seen ESQ on all your favorite Notre Dame players and coaches with over a decade of making the best custom clothing available. ESQ will help you look and feel your best in 2025, from a perfect fitting suit or sport coat, shirt or bomber jacket, or the perfect tuxedo for wedding season. Check out Ge's amazing work at esqclothing.com. Book an appointment to upgrade your wardrobe today. Mention ISD and get 10% off your entire purchase. All right, let's start off the show by talking about Notre Dame's personnel department that they finalized yesterday. So we knew about General Manager Mike Martin. He's at the kind of the tip of the spear there in terms of their personnel staff. Very recently, Jordan Blake was named the director of player personnel over from Colorado. He was, I think he was the assistant director of player personnel over there. And he's been recruiting coordinator at other various stops. You had heard some positive things. You talked about it a little bit yesterday. Go into a little bit more in depth, Jamie, about Jordan Blake and what he could be bringing to the player personnel department.
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously he's there with Dion. They've been successful recruiting. It's not just, I think everybody thinks that like people are just choosing because of Dion, but it's like Dion probably does the least amount of recruiting of like any head coach because he's got like his own like Tubi show and like is doing a bunch of other stuff. He's not there. I mean, people are obviously attracted to, Deion Sanders and what they've done with the program and his success. And obviously he's a Hall of Fame legendary player, but they have a lot of good recruiters on their staff and they've built relationships. And that's kind of what Blake has been. He obviously was at SMU before, briefly at TCU, because he was with Dykes there, Sonny Dykes at both of those places. And he went from, playing to the recruiting office, which, a decent amount of guys have done. And he's, is the son of former, NFL defensive line coach, and then also college coach John Blake, who was the head coach at Oklahoma briefly, and was also defensive line coach at North Carolina. So, I mean, guy's been around the game for, his whole life. But I think the main thing is that he was kind of known exactly, like if you read the kind of stuff about him, you would think that he's exactly like Chad, like in terms of, like this guy builds relationships. People like he is, people are attracted to his personality and how he is able to connect with kids. Obviously he's young, right? Like he's young and that's part of it. And that's exactly what was needed for that job, right? Like that job is that obviously he's going to grow into, all the other pieces of like evaluation and stuff too. But I think that part of it is the most important part. So, yeah. And I know that, Rashad Samples was on staff at SMU. He was someone that people, if you're familiar with recruiting, you would know that Samples is one of these guys that always gets listed as like one of the top recruiters in Texas, does a great job, like building relationships, has been a guy, for years and years has been someone who's been notable in what he's done. And, he has said that he thinks that Blake is going to be a superstar. So I think that's, a pretty good endorsement. And it's probably one of the things that helped lead, Marcus Freeman to choosing him. And I think that's it. he's a good complementary hire to what they already have on the staff.
Yeah. Is it fair to say that this, much more so than Mike Martin, is the Chad replacement in Jordan Blake?
Yes, I would say. Obviously Martin will do some of what Chad did, in terms of like some of the NIL stuff and all the other kind of things. Marcus Freeman kind of briefly talked about it in the press conference today, but in terms of the recruiting part of it, like, Martin is involved in recruiting, but he's not going to be like the point guy for so many people.
I think Marcus said that Mike Martin would like the on-campus guy.
Yes,
like when they get to campus.
Yeah,
when he gets to campus, but he won't be, in the trenches, so to speak, the recruiting, that sort of thing. That'll be a Jordan Blake kind of job, which is what Chad was, that was what he was really good at. So that's good stuff. MTA, Myron Tagovailoa Mosa, comes onto the staff. Mike mentioned this on the board. I think it was yesterday or the day before. And Mike had wind of this, I don't know, a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
Like weeks ago, he kind of mentioned this was going to be a thing. And we kind of talked about it then, the staff did, and just how he was kind of like rising up the ranks in LSU, and he was kind of building a lot of, I don't want to say hype, a lot of positive buzz about him and just like what he was doing at LSU, and he would be a really good addition for Notre Dame. I think when Mike first brought it up, I think it kind of sounded like he might be doing the Jordan Blake role, but he's not. He's just kind of more on the staff and kind of building up there. But I mean, obviously Notre Dame has like a very good Polynesian pipeline right now going on. Obviously this will bolster that as well. I mean, because not just the fact that he's Polynesian, but the fact that he, like the route that he took, he went from Hawaii. I think he was at one point looking at USC. Was he committed at USC at one point? I'm trying to remember.
No, he wasn't.
But it was between Notre Dame and USC. Yeah. And then he ended up at obviously Notre Dame, went to LSU to work under Brian Kelly as a recruiting guy, and now he's back to Notre Dame. I mean, all of that just really helps Notre Dame in terms of the West Coast, right? There's a lot of Polynesians out in Hawaii, obviously, a lot of Polynesians in California. They've got Kingston Viliamuasa. They got Manfaremo. Like, it is that kind of continues to build on itself. A lot of people are very excited about MTA and what he could do for the program.
I am. I'm definitely excited. I think it's always great too when there are so many things we mentioned kind of briefly about it, like at the end of last podcast, that it's such a good thing when guys can come back and they can give their lived experience of what they've done, what Notre Dame helped them with, like the transition there, I think is usually like pretty big, obviously, especially for guys from Hawaii who don't get to go in and visit home very often, right? It's not an easy trip. So I think that's something that's huge. I think it really is to build a connection. To have all the players is great, but you want to have that there to have a representation on the staff as well. And I think it's really important, because if you look at like one of the things at USC, they have Sean Tua's one of their defensive line coaches, who he's there. But I think one of the things that they used to do a lot better is they had way more Polynesian representation there, and they used to like kind of dominate when it came to like recruiting Polynesian players. And I think it's always going to be hard to get kids from Hawaii or whatever. It's such a culture shock. It's such a change to go from there to South Bend. But when someone has made that transition, someone can tell you like exactly how it is. And this is, hey, these are the pros, these are the cons, these are all these things, and this is what it can do for you. And then obviously it helps having the players, but having a guy like him who was a captain at Notre Dame as well, like I think it's huge.
Yeah. And I think, we've seen Manti as kind of an analyst on some of the NFL shows, and he's had like kind of a post-career on that front. And I think it's good for that community, because it is a minority community, right? Like there are a lot in the sport, but comparatively, it is a minority community within college or within football, period. And to see like, hey, you can come to Notre Dame and be a football player, and that's great. But you can also like rise up in the ranks within the university. You can become a personnel staff. You can go on and be on television if you're Manti Te'o, right? Like there's opportunities there for you. Obviously, they had great success with Marist. KVA has started to, obviously his career is off to a very good start. So, it's good to have that after football aspect of like, hey, this could be, there is a path for you, it doesn't have to be just the football thing. So I think that's important. And look, good for MTA, regardless of whether it, Polynesian or not, it's a former player. You love former players to come back and be a part of your,
and he's going to be part of the evaluation stuff too, right? Like
right.
It's not just he's recruiting, but just obviously that's part of it is going to be relationship building and all that too. So.
Buddy Mitchell, thank you for the super chat. Excited for spring football. Love the show. Appreciate that. Appreciate everyone for being in attendance. Hit the like, hit subscribe, notification bell, all those things. All right. Some sort of news and notes that kind of came out. Devin Houston moving to the O-line. Listen, you go from D tackle, which is in clear need of playmakers and good players, right? Like there's a need there. You go to O-line where there isn't a need. Like they don't need quality players on the O-line. They recruit that position as well as any. We talked so much yesterday at length about they have the right kind of problems in terms of trying to fill up, those spots on the O-line. Devin Houston moves over to the O-line. Maybe he can hit, right? But for him, this is kind of like we hadn't heard anything on the D-line, so it kind of makes sense he's changing positions, but it's tough to break into that O-line room.
I mean, it's definitely tough. I will say that he was a pretty good O-lineman in high school. Like he was a guy that definitely like could have been targeted for that to play that in college. So it's not like crazy for him to move to the offensive line from that perspective. Like, so basically that's my way of saying it's like, it's not a 0% chance that he's like, doesn't actually become like, maybe he's a guy who, could develop there and into something. You wouldn't expect much this year, but maybe he turns into something that is there. And obviously he's like moves pretty well. He's a pretty good athlete for a guy his size. But yeah, like, I mean, they need people at defensive line. They're looking for people there, but it's also a situation where I think you look at, and I think it's probably, I mean, it is a good thing that Brendan Vernon, he's listed at 293 on the thing. He looked bigger when you saw like the videos of them like working out and that. And I think that's a good thing for his development. But I think if Devin Houston and Brendan Vernon were at the point where they thought, hey, these guys are like good to go, because they would be going to year 3, they wouldn't have got Dawson and Hughes.
Right.
Hughes is in the same class as those guys.
Yeah.
Right. They wouldn't have gone and got another defensive tackle in that thing with 2 years of eligibility left. Those guys, he's got 3, Houston and Vernon does, but because Hughes didn't redshirt, but I just think that it's just one of these things where I don't know. They do need, especially for bodies for practice and stuff like that. Right now in spring, they do more spring. So it doesn't hurt taking a chance. And the thing is too, is they were probably pretty honest about him. Like,
oh yeah,
you're not going to like as of right now, it's not looking good for you. Like in terms of where you're going to be, come the fall and going forward at defensive tackle. So if that's the case, do you want to give whole line a shot, or like, do you want to go look somewhere, like, because that's kind of what it's going to be, right? So, I don't know. We'll see what happens, but I will say, someone asked in the chat earlier about like, have there been guys that have, made that at Notre Dame? I can't remember a guy in like anytime recent. I'm sure there was something probably in the Holtz days or something like that or whatever, but there definitely has been that has happened before, where guys have moved to the D line. Obviously, people know that Jerron Jones was a defensive lineman in college, moved to the O line in
pros.
The pros.
Yeah.
So it's not crazy. It's not crazy that it could happen for him. But it's just, it is what it is. You're in tough. You're just like, everybody else has got all these things ahead of you, and you're playing catch up, and it's like sink or swim, and it's tough to catch up when you're swimming.
Like, it's one thing to look at it from his point of view in a vacuum, where it's like, can it work out for you specifically? Yeah, maybe it's better, right? Like, maybe you could be a better O lineman than D lineman in college, right? It's different when you're looking bigger picture at Notre Dame's situation. It's like you have to be better than Sullivan Absher, and that's where it gets hard. But that doesn't mean, someone said transfer portal. Like, this could be a look for him to be like, hey, I need to get reps on the O-line, because if I go somewhere else, I'm going to be O-line.
I'm probably going to have to play O-line. Yeah. Or maybe he wants to, because he knows that he's never going to play on the defensive line. Right.
Yeah. So we'll continue to monitor that situation. I had it in my mind and I lost it, and what I wanted to talk about next. D-line. O-line. Okay. O-line positions. Gerby Lambert, right tackle, working at right tackle today. In place of Emil Wagner. I think Emil Wagner was just kind of watching, but Gerby Lambert working at the right tackle position. Sullivan Absher was working center with Joe Otting. Right now, I think Sullivan Absher is doing that in the event that you always need a third center, right? And he will be a guard when Ashton Craig is coming back, right? So it'll be Craig, Otting, and then if there needs a third person, Sullivan Absher will be that, not Anthony Knapp, right? And I think that the fact that Gerby Lambert's working on the right, and the fact that Anthony Knapp did not take reps at center, it's like tells me they want Anthony Knapp to be the left tackle, and he'll probably be starting there, starting the spring there. That's where his position's going to be. They're going to have him there, and then they'll go on from there, right? So it's been kind of much discussed, much speculated upon. That's where it looks like it's going to be. Now, you mentioned yesterday, like, they could move these guys all around. They could give Gerby Lambert, like, if Emil Wagner, it's a day where he's going to get work. Maybe they put Gerby Lambert over on the left. Maybe they cross-train him on both spots. But that's what it looks like it's going to be, for the spring at least.
Yeah, I mean, it's day one. Also, wouldn't you think that it's a good sign too that if one of Notre Dame's starting tackles out, that Lambert is the guy who steps into that?
For sure.
Seems like a pretty good thing. So
one of those good problems.
Yeah. So, I mean, we can read whatever we want into it right now. But I would say one thing you do know for sure is that Anthony Knapp, pretty good freshman left tackle.
Yeah.
Especially in the run game. Was like really good, like kind of shockingly good in the run game for what he did. And you also know that if Anthony Knapp is the left tackle for Notre Dame this year, that chances are if he went down, Charles Jagusa is probably the next guy in at left tackle, no matter where he's playing.
Yeah.
So
because they have guard options.
Yeah. And Michael Parks is saying Knapp not at center sucks. I mean, they have Ashton Craig, who's going to be back. Like it's not like crazy. Sullivan Absher too. I think that is something like, I think what you're saying is probably true. They got to work it because they're going to see if he can play it. Right. They're going to see if he can play it. If people recall, like Chris Watt took reps at center, like at one time too, right? Like to do it, never played a down of center in his career, right? Like guys do that and they wanted, and if you get down to a point of something like Kristofic was a guard, and then all of a sudden he was like working at center too, right? Like it happens. They're gonna work different guys. It'll be interesting to kind of see like where they can figure by the time like you get towards the end of spring. If someone like Absher, if by the time they get to the blue gold game, is he like taking reps of center in the blue oil game. That'll be interesting.
Yeah. And look, I don't want to, I spoke a little too definitively just a second ago. It's the first day of spring. So much can change. And,
fluid.
Between now and when it actually matters in the fall, it just is what it is. So we'll just take it as it comes, right? Today it was Lambert at right tackle and, Absher at center. Maybe another day when you see later in the spring, maybe it'll be different, right? The media isn't going to get in for a little bit, I think. So that's something to just keep an eye on. We're going to be monitoring that throughout the spring. I'll throw up some practice video that Matt took today. A lot of Jeremiah Love in the slot and taking routes, and that's good. It has a one-handed catch, like right off the top, and interesting views of Scrap Richardson and Jerome Bettis Jr. So we'll just play those, and then we can kind of talk over it.
Yeah, that is pretty smooth.
Pretty good player
from Love. Okay, great house, obviously there. I think one thing that was interesting. I mean, from the Marcus Freeman stuff, and as we kind of talk about it, and I figure we can talk about receiver right now as we're doing it too. I think for anyone who assumed that Jaden Greathouse was on the list of restricted things was anyone who thought, he's out for the spring. No, he's going to practice. Maybe he'll just be limited in some of the stuff that he does. And Faison, I didn't expect Jordan Faison to be out there today.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, it sounds like he's not going to, obviously I think that's great that if you're in season for lacrosse. Yes. Your focus should be on lacrosse, but the fact that he's going to do more in the spring, that's really interesting. That's good. And I think that's important. I think they probably told him it's important. And I think
Marcus Freeman did say he's gonna. It's lacrosse season, but he's gonna do more spring this year than he did last year.
Yeah. And obviously this is that rugby style tackling that Matt kind of wrote about in his report too. For those who don't know, Chris Ash, he is one of the people who was kind of at the forefront of rugby style tackling in college football. And I wouldn't say it's not foreign to what Notre Dame did, because everyone's been kind of going towards this anyways. Mm-hmm. It's not like Notre Dame was teaching under Al Golden, it was just straight old school, whatever, dropping your head, because you didn't see that. You see, obviously Notre Dame was a pretty good tackling team.
Is it me, or is Elijah Burris bigger than you thought he would be? He looked taller to me. I thought he was much more like Will Pauling, much more closer to that. I thought, I was like, man, I have him penciled. I think he's bigger than Will Pauling, who we just saw right there. I had him penciled in the slot. I think he could play field. I think he's big enough for that. So that's something for me to monitor. I thought he had good size to him. Scrap is just so long. I mean, he's just all legs. I think he has to be a field guy. See, there's Elijah Burris there. I just think he's bigger than I thought he would be. And there's Jerome Bettis Jr. He looks pretty physically built. So
I will say too. And when you watch Burris there, out of it, just his feet are so good. Yeah, his feet are really good. But even for Bettis, for a big guy, I think you see him drop his hips there. Mm-hmm. And that's a little bit more than I would have looked better than I would have expected from that. So I think that's encouraging. I think Burris too. I mean, I knew he was he needs to add weight. That is his thing.
Oh, for sure.
To do. I knew he was going to be kind of a guy who was probably going to be a slot or a field. And certainly played a decent amount of field for his high school program too. I always wonder, and this was always something with Howard Cross, that people always well, his dad had a crazy growth spurt or whatever. Yeah. And I think obviously everyone knows Elijah Burris' dad is Plaxico Burris. He was a 6'6" receiver. He was huge. I don't think Elijah's getting to 6'6", but I mean, there are guys that do sprout up a couple inches once they get into college. So wonder if he gets bigger like that too. That's always something to watch. And obviously with Cross, he stayed at 6 feet but he didn't become 6'5" like his old man. But I think you saw with a lot of other stuff in terms of his size, like his length and stuff too. Like he's not a lot longer than someone who's 6 feet tall.
Yeah, and I don't like. You just talked about Jerome Bettis Jr., dropping his hips when he's running routes, things of that nature. You don't want to make too much of it, but at the same time, like you spoke before about like safeties, young safeties or young corners, like when you would see them just do indie and like in their pedal, in the way they turn and run, and you would say to yourself, oh no, he can't play because he can't do this.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's one of those things where it's a necessary component, but you do like to see it, right? And so once you see it, it's like you can kind of check the box. It's like, okay, they can do that already on their first day of spring. They don't have to then it becomes like, okay, they actually have to, figure out the nuances of how to be a receiver and learn the playbook and be a playmaker and all those other things. But you do need to see them being able to like get in and out of breaks that gives them a chance to be good players, and especially when it's like Jerome Bettis Jr. and Scrap Richardson, when it's like they're playing multiple positions, and in high school, and they're kind of do everything guys. It's like they're not going to be very refined. So when they come in and they're just playing wide receiver, you want to see those things. And so they were able to do that. So, nice to kind of check that off. Marcus Freeman talked about quarterbacks. All three are going to see first team reps in the, first team reps in spring. And so it's going to be different every day, he said, but they're all going to be with their first group. He said, when we feel like we have a clear number one, we're going to announce it. But I don't have a timetable, and I'm not going to give myself a timetable. And that was kind of how he addressed it. He took kind of a holistic view on the whole thing, not just quarterback, but like there was a question at the end about being on the 105 and whether there are players, concerned about they're playing for a roster spot. And he kind of said, it doesn't matter, and it shouldn't matter to them. They need to be the best players that they can be every single day, and the rest will figure itself out. And I think that's kind of how he's taking it with the quarterbacks as well. It's like, don't worry about trying to be the starter, like worried about being the best player that you can, and approach every day like that. I thought that was good. I thought that was good kind of words from him. What are your kind of thoughts on, just how he spoke about the quarterbacks and things of that nature?
Yeah, I totally agree with that. His comments about the 105 thing. I think that was like, I don't even know. I'm sure there are people in their back of their head, right? Especially if you're a walk-on, right? Like you're thinking about, well, am I going to be here? And whatever. Sure. I get it, right? But like that, it literally is nothing that you can worry about. Like you have to just go and do your thing. Like it's going to happen. You have to go and get better. And I think it's going to be really interesting. I love what he was talking about when he was asked about kind of like the young receivers. And that was the part where he said, like, I'm sorry, I forget who asked the question, but, kind of inferred that, oh, Greathouse isn't going to be available. And he's like, no, he's going to be available. Like, he's going to be there. So, and it's just really like Faison Pauling's going to come later in the spring. And then obviously Malachi Fields is coming in the summer. But everybody else is there. Like some of those young guys, it's true. They're going to have to play. And yes, there are going to be some of these young guys who make mistakes and don't run the route at the right depth, or they don't get the right check or whatever. But they got to judge based on the decisions the quarterbacks make.
Right.
And all of that. They can't just look. It's just like, that's why there's film, right? That's why you go and back and look at it and you don't just look at stats. Because if you're just looking at stats, which I always thought was like one of the dumbest things about when people went to Elite 11 or whatever, and they're like, well, this guy threw this, and when they went 7-on-7 and this, I'm like,
yeah.
That's so dumb. It's just one of those things because you're not really judging. I can guarantee you, like the people who are evaluating choosing the MVP of the thing aren't like being like, this guy completed 65% and the other guy completed 63%. Like, no, they're looking at all of it at the bigger picture of it. And that's how they're going to look at it with the quarterbacks. Right. And he obviously didn't tip his hand in any direction at all of like where he's going to go. And he shouldn't. Like, it would be dumb because also too, like, you can't go into it and say, hey, we're going to give all these guys a shot and say, you know, oh, but we prefer this guy. This guy's got this strength. This guy's whatever. You just have to go and let it play out and like, literally it's going to be the best man wins. Right. So, you know, and I was thinking about it because there was somebody who threw in the chat right at the beginning about how, you know, CJ Carr is going to be one of the people left standing, you know, out of like, say, one's going to transfer after. Yes, it was this Michael Bosky. You know, so CJ Carr isn't the odd man out, leaving Minchie and Jelly transferring out the string. Agree? No clue. I think that is just one of those things where you just can't, like, I do think that like CJ Carr will still be there, but I was thinking about, it's not 100% that one of those guys is going to transfer in after the spring. Like, for that to happen, it has to be enough of a separation where that third guy has to say, man, I don't have any chance of winning this. Like, I'm not going to play here ever. And really, like, the only real kind of scenario that I would see is either Angeli just gets beat out and it's like, well, that's just like, it's clearly the other two are better than him. And then he's gone. Or Minchie's like, Carr's ahead of me and he's clearly ahead of me. And it's just like, whatever.
And he's younger.
And he's younger, right? So, because let's just say that Angeli is the guy who ends up being a starter this year, and Minchie and Carr, they're kind of like right there, you know, like together, like very close to what, you know, who would be the backup. It's not necessarily like that one guy would transfer, because I don't think like Angeli has to be like, I mean, I would say after the season for sure, you know, not one of those guys would be gone, but it's not necessarily that all of those guys won't be there at least during the season and then decide, because you have to see, like, Angeli might go through the season and not be that dude during the season. And chances are you're going to have a better shot. Wherever they go, are they going to have a shot to start this year? There's probably not too many places. Yeah. It's just out of it where it is right now, unless you're going to like a group of 5 program, right? There's probably not too many, like, you know, power 4 programs that you could just kind of walk into where you're not going to be at a severe disadvantage going against somebody, unless somebody got hurt in the spring or something like that, right? So I just think that and the way, obviously, you look at how they protect guys during the spring. I can't even remember the last like big time quarterback that got hurt during the spring, and that was like, it was over for him. Like, yeah. It's like and even too, like that Ron Paulus, you know, breaking his collarbone kind of thing in you know, way back, right? Like that kind of thing, like rarely ever happens.
That would never happen.
Well, it never happened today. Yeah,
obviously. It would never. He was live.
Yeah.
In fall camp, like 2 weeks before the season.
Yeah.
And by the way, like, you know, if you read, there's books on this, and
the guys have said they were trying to hurt him.
It was not.
I mean, maybe not try to hurt him, but they were
going to hit him. I mean,
they were trying to make him feel it. Maybe not
Notre Dame's
break his collarbone. But
Notre Dame's starting nose tackle sacked him and landed on him and broke his collarbone in a practice. Like, he was going to start for Notre Dame. I mean, can you imagine? Can you imagine like Riley Mills sacking CJ Carr and he's going to be the starting quarterback in practice? And it's like, yeah, he's out. You gotta go with someone else. It would never happen today.
No,
you know, and probably for good reason. It's interesting. You think about like the Minchie thing, right? So like, I was thinking, can he go somewhere and start? Maybe not, but he might want to go to like a place where there's a quarterback in his last year.
Yeah, where he's going to go and that.
So it's like Carson Beck, right? I'll just throw out Miami and Carson Beck, right? Carson Beck's going to be there a year and he's going to move on. The concern, though, he could just find himself in the same situation because it's like
Yeah.
everywhere you go, it's like we could take a guy who's played and is a proven, or we can try to develop this guy who is unproven, right? And that's kind of like, and this isn't just a Notre Dame problem, it's a college football question. Like, when will a guy ever get to just be brought up and start and no one really knows like what he can do truly on a contender? It's hard, right? And what Notre Dame is doing is kind of rare in that sense. It's like a top team that's not going to the portal and they're just going to ride with, what's on their roster, right? Even though they're not totally sure. And so, I've always been an advocate of, you can, if you stick it out long enough, you will get your chance. If you just hang in there and you let other people make their decisions and make their moves, if you just hang in there, your time will come. You just got to be patient and it'll happen some kind of way.
Well, look at Ty Simpson at Alabama. I don't know for sure, but heading into the spring and all that, it looks like he's the favorite to be the starter. He basically, from day one, people were like, this guy's going in the portal like that. Yeah. What people kind of thought. So I don't think, I think people are seeing that it's not always the best thing to go, because you could end up being Walker Howard.
Yeah.
Right. Who I don't even know where Walker Howard is now.
Oh, where was he? He was at
he was at obviously he started with LSU, went to Ole Miss, didn't work out at Ole Miss, and he's in the portal somewhere or whatever. I'm sure I could look it up right now. But I just don't know. That could happen, and you could say, well, if he was talented enough, he would just, that's where he'd go. But he's at Louisiana now, so he's back at, there. But it's like all of that to get to there, and you know what? He might end up being still a pretty good player, because we've seen that kind of happen with quarterbacks.
Tyler Shough, good example,
perfect example. But there's just been a lot more guys that kind of stuck it out. That, and if you look at Georgia and Alabama specifically,
yeah,
the two premier programs, you'd call them the two premier programs of college football over the last decade. They've had homegrown guys for the most part that have, and a lot of those guys have waited their turn.
Yeah,
so I don't think that's a coincidence that has worked out that way, right? So obviously they've had other guys transfer too. It's not everybody sticks around. No one's going to stick around the whole 4 years to be a backup.
Right.
But I think it makes it easier too when they've had Mac Jones was still a first round pick after Tua was gone, right? So it can happen, and I think that everybody always everybody always thought JD Price was gone. He's gone for sure, right? And it didn't happen, right?
Right. Jalen Sneed.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to just kind of follow throughout the spring, and look, you don't know, maybe Steve Angeli just lights it up, right? That could absolutely happen. He could just have a lights out spring, and that's true for any of them, right? It's true for Minchie, it's true for Carr, and I'm sure they'll all have their moments, right? They'll all just kind of shine at different points, and it's just about honestly, you'll learn as much about the wide receivers as you will about the quarterback, and things like that. Marcus Freeman talked about they waited 2 weeks because of the long season. He didn't want to skimp on the winter conditioning, which I thought was very astute on his part, right? That is more, in my opinion, that is actually in some ways more important than spring practice itself, because
I think it is.
You need to get them physically ready to go. Expand on that. Why do you think that?
Well, people always think that everybody's a finished product in terms of, because some of these guys come in and they're freaks and whatever, but there's so much physical development that goes on from a kid who arrives when they're 18 years old, by the time they leave when they're 21, 22, 23, there's so much physical development that has to happen during that time. And that's why, too, often when you look at like, well, this guy didn't hit. Well, why didn't he hit? Some of that stuff is that, well, you're like, yeah, he was healthy, whatever. Well, maybe he got hurt during the season and he didn't have that time in the off season to really develop. It's a lot different when you're like already have built up years and years and you're like, 27-year-old man that's coming back and you're coming off an injury and you're getting back to something, than when you're like, you're still in your kind of like infancy of maybe doing like Olympic lifts or getting, your body ready to compete at a certain level. It's hard to get your body ready to compete at that level if you're not doing it. Right. So, and I know that, they list the new roster, right? And there's like updated weights. And I mean, definitely there are some like good numbers there that you're like, okay, that's whatever. But then there's like, what about this? Right. But I always think like, especially in the spring, wait till you get into the summer and when you get that roster and what that looks like. Because if you get that, and obviously sometimes that isn't always the most spot on, but that is a far more accurate way of looking at it because it's about the build up to there. So just like as a random thing, you look at like Boubacar Traore. Obviously, he's been out, whatever, right? So it's not like no one's like really paying attention, whatever. But he's down like 5 pounds from what he was listed at last season. And you might say, well, that's concerning. It's like, I mean, the guy tore his knee and he was, doing it. He's going to like build back up. What's he weigh when you get to August, right? Like that's what's going to matter. Right. And I think too, like there's guys that come in and we don't know with like a Jason Onye who was listed at, I think 307 or something like that. I remember to look at the exact one where he was listed, or 308. So he's 308 and that was up from like 290 something, right? I think it was like 296 or something. Well, obviously like that's a pretty significant jump and it's still there, but it's like, well, he was away from the team for a long time. I mean, he's, Marcus Freeman mentioned it was mental health or stuff. He wasn't in the weight room. He wasn't doing all this.
Right.
Kind of stuff.
Like he's not playing the sport.
Yeah. So there's different guys too, that it's going to be like, it's not about where they're at right now. And it's about like, hey, well, this off season, this is the plan of attack and where we got to be like going forward. And then you just kind of see where they're at that time. Like the obsession over Emil Wagner's weight, right?
Yeah.
Who's to say that they haven't decided that, well, Emil, part of the thing is because, during the season, it was like he had to carry such a big load that they're like, well, we really need to get like this off season and we want to get you to this weight or we want to get you here or there. And that that is more of a priority than say like every day the practice reps he would get. Right. So,
yeah.
Yeah.
And, it just wasn't a lot of time, right? Between Jan 20 and March 19th. It's just not a lot of time to make like substantial physical changes, but you do need to get that in place. You need to get all of that started up, the conditioning, getting the body physically ready to go. I think Matt mentioned some people, and check out irishsportsdaily.com. Matt's got some practice observations up right now, things you can look at. Like he noted some upper body strength improvements for some players. And while I'm not certainly possible in 2 months, right? Like the more pronounced and the weight changes and all those things, the body type changes, that'll come in the fall when they come back after summer break, when you get a good 5-6 months to actually improve these things, right? Whereas, 2 months after you play, like how seriously like locked in are you to winter conditioning 2 weeks after you've played for the national title? You played 16 game season, right? Like it takes a lot longer than that.
Yeah.
And so, but that's why Marcus Freeman didn't want to skimp on it, because those 2 weeks are actually very important for them. And so look, you want to you want to maximize the time you have to prepare yourself and get yourself ready to go. It's not just, the end product doesn't just happen, right? You need to make preparations for that. You don't just wake up and have a great social media page, Jamie. You don't wake up and have.
I knew this was coming, and this was smooth as heck. Yeah,
you don't wake up and just have that, right? You gotta put in the work, and you gotta supplement it with things, and you gotta make preparations. And you can do that for your small business or for your highlight reel, whatever it might be, with VSR Media. Founded by Notre Dame Football pregame host and Emmy Award-winning anchor Vahid Sadrazadeh, VSR Media provides professional and cinematic video and photo. Whether you're looking for a collegiate or pro-level highlight reel, have a personal story to tell, or aiming to diversify and grow your business, VSR Media specializes in short and long-form video storytelling, social media management, website design. VSR Media also captures professional headshots, senior and sports photos. Contact them at vsrmediacompany.com. Mention Irish Sports Daily to receive 20% off your first project. Visit them online or give them a call at 574-800-9106. Let's see. Joel Easton says, maybe I'll cover this before, but Deion Sanders said something about replacing the spring game with a scrimmage against another team. What's your take? I like the NFL training camp style idea. I don't know. In practice, I think it's a good idea. I don't know if it works for Notre Dame specifically because of how long their season was. I don't think that they need to be playing an actual game against an opponent where the juices are really flowing at this point. But like if you don't make the playoffs, I think it makes a lot more sense. Or if you like, maybe you're 1 and out in the playoffs, I think it's okay. But they just 2 months ago, they were playing in like the title game. I don't know if it makes sense for them, but for like Colorado, who just played the one bowl game, didn't play in a conference title game. So I think they had just the 13 games. I think it's a pretty good idea. What do you think, Jamie? I mean, in junior college, we played preseason games, like actual games against opponents. So that was a thing that happened for us. And I thought that was good. So what do you take on this?
From a Notre Dame perspective, what you said makes total sense. Like it would be tough. Although I will say that I think they don't have to play a full. It doesn't have to be like, hey, this replaces the spring game where everybody comes to see it. But I think if you did something where, hey, well, we're going to bust to you during this time. And I think that's why it makes sense with like local programs where you're kind of like doing it. So obviously Notre Dame plays Purdue this year. So it's not like, hey, you're not going to do that with Purdue. But if you're not playing Purdue for like 8 years or however long the break is, I think that's the kind of thing that makes sense.
Well, this is when you could get like a MAC school involved.
Yeah. I think though, the one thing about the MAC school is that, you don't want guys to be like, well, he looks great. And it's like, well, this MAC school.
Yeah.
There's going to be the depth of the programs.
The MAC school actually doesn't want it, right? Like, because they don't want their guys to show out. And then it's like, oh, Notre Dame is.
There's some of that, but then also too, I think, because of the depth of it, it's like if you're actually having the split practices, which, as Joel mentioned, the NFL training camp style, I think most people who watch Hard Knocks are kind of familiar with that thing where a lot of times if let's say the Chiefs are playing the Ravens in the preseason, well, the Chiefs will fly out to the Ravens training camp and they'll practice against them for like
2-3 days. Yeah.
2-3 days. And then they'll play the preseason game. And really, like, the preseason game is kind of like not as important as those actual practices, right? That they do. And it'll just be things like, hey, we're going to go like 1-on-1s against each other.
Or like 7-on-7.
Yeah. 7-on-7. You may do some inside run stuff, but they're not going to do too many because they don't want guys getting hurt. Right. So, I think it would be a really good idea. I think it's a great idea for, like you said, for like Colorado, who I think Syracuse, like Fran Brown, who's the head coach of Syracuse, said, yeah, we'll come down to Boulder. I don't know how that makes much sense in terms of, I mean, I'm sure it's such big business. Someone can write a check to get Syracuse to fly down from, New York to state to there. But it makes a lot more sense if it's like Indiana and Notre Dame, or like, Notre Dame and Northwestern, or, something like that, because it's like you're kind of close by or enough where you can say, hey, this year we're going to like bust to you. Next year we're going to bust them. Because if you're going to fly out and do all that and all the logistical kind of things, it's like, it's a big, it's not like a easy price tag. And obviously you're going to have to stay somewhere during that time too. Like that's more of like extra, like all those hotels and whatever and all that kind of stuff. So I don't think it's as easy as, uh, Syracuse saying like, hey, we'll do it. Like, I don't think it's easy. It's like, yeah, it'll take some time to kind of get that out. But I love that idea. And I always kind of thought that it would be better in the spring if they did something like that.
The the thing about that is, and you see it in the NFL too, is there's fights all the time at these things.
Yes.
And like you
it
don't
can get
want
way
that
out of hand.
So my second year in junior college, we scrimmaged the team, College of the Canyons, and the first play of the game, and obviously the quarterbacks are in red, and the first play of the game, we sent a blitz off the corner and he goes unblocked and he lit up this quarterback. It was a decleater. There was a huge brawl in the middle of the field. And these are the type of things that can happen when you bring in colleges where it's like, what are they going to do? Right? Like, it's not sanctioned in any kind of way. There's no, sometimes you just have a player. It's like, yeah, I hit the quarterback. So what? He's not my quarterback. He's your quarterback. I don't care. And, and then we had to have this long talk about, like, we were concerned about our quarterbacks and they're going to come in and hit our quarterbacks and stuff. And it's just one of those things where it's just like, when you get out of the controls of your own team, you can control your own team a lot more than you control someone else's team. The last thing you want is your player,
Pros are also going to treat it a little differently.
Yeah.
I mean, even though there are idiots there too, but for the most part, these guys kind of know it's like livelihoods are on the line for some of these guys. So they don't want to, but in college, there's a lot of fights. I mean, in practice, like,
in pros, they're pros, right? These are professionals. Whereas in college, like, you get some knucklehead who's just kind of a loose cannon and he lights up the opposing team's quarterback. And then there's a huge thing.
Or if there's some kind of targeting, or you never know. Right. There's a lot of things. I also think, the transfer part of it, the part about like, we're not having the spring game because people are going to recruit our players. I think that's garbage. That's so stupid. Like, these people know they're aware of these people already. It's not like all that would do is just drive up the price tag for somebody if somebody looked great then.
Yeah.
And also too, how many, like, I guess Junior Jabby would have got a bag back in the day. Like, congratulations, right? Like, it's just, it's true. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it didn't turn out to be anything. So
yeah.
I think if they change it, which they said they're going to with the spring portal window, that would, I think, make it a little bit easier. Because if guys can't transfer after the spring, then it's like, okay, yeah, we'll practice you because you're not going to try to steal our guy after.
Yeah.
Because he can't go.
Yeah.
But also what Greg Wasserman brought up too, deciding who gets to host and stuff. It's like, you do have to do like, hey, we're doing a home and home thing here. 1 year.
I mean, there's like hotels,
all
classes,
that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Some places are, obviously there's some places that are like extremely hard to get to.
Yeah.
Like they're people dread when you have them on the schedule. That's like, oh gosh, we got to go here. Right. So it's not that simple. Also, what Greg said about, do players travel who miss classes? Like, there's that thing that you don't have to worry about that when you're a pro. Like, that is another thing that, it's not quite as easy. to get it done. So it sounds great in theory, but it would probably be pretty hard to pull off.
It seems like they would want to do something though, because there's money to be made. Colorado plays whoever in a spring game and they put it on TV. People are going to watch that. Like,
especially for Colorado, like more eyeballs on you. That's been good for them.
Yeah. There's money to be made that people are going to try to make it. So it'll be interesting with people just being like, oh, we're getting rid of spring games and stuff. Someone's going to do something to where it's like, they're going to incentivize them to kind of bring it back. Last thing from me, I just think that, listening to Marcus Freeman talk today, the biggest question for me is just, is Notre Dame ready, and is Marcus Freeman ready to make this hey, we're going to the playoffs every year, right? Can we win it is the question. Can they get to that point? Because I don't know that Notre Dame has really been on that track, and that was one thing that Brian Kelly kind of didn't really get to. It's like they were always good, like from 18 to 21, like they were good, but it's like they weren't like good, like the 19 team was good. The 21 team was good, but they weren't like good. Like, can Marcus Freeman get to that point where it's like, hey, we're going to be in the playoffs. We're going to win that first round game. We're going to get into the semis at least kind of yearly. And it just he kind of has that vibe to me, or at least he had it today, where it's like, hey, I'm in control of this program, and like we're working on like little marginal things as a program, but we're going to be good. And, it'll be interesting to me just to kind of follow that evolution if they can actually get to that point.
I think that's an awesome point, Greg, because that 2018, if you look at, 28, let's just say throw 2021 out the window, because I think, yes, they won 11 games that year.
That schedule was so bad.
That schedule was garbage. Awful. The team really wasn't that good.
Yeah.
They should have lost a bunch of other games. They won like a bunch of games that were like one-score games that were like pretty ugly, which is why ultimately they were 11-1 and they didn't even get a sniff.
Yeah.
Of the playoffs,
I mean,
right?
The Toledo game, if the guy goes down at the 1, they kick a field goal, the game's over. They were on the way to losing to Virginia Tech. It's like you're down 8 with 3 minutes left.
They almost blew it at Florida State. Like there's a bunch of stuff, right?
Yeah.
And that Florida State team was not good, right? Yeah. Like, so there's a lot of things there that if you look at it, where 2018 to 2019 and 2020, so much of that was off the strength of like the 2016 recruiting class, and all these guys like being in the core of those teams, and they just didn't like that core didn't exist there. And I think it just seems like what they're doing now is far more built to last, and also to just like thinking ahead, even though they're, as Marcus Freeman talked about, they're replacing people, they're doing all these things to try to move ahead and evolve, off the field with their personnel space and all that too. It just seems like there's way better foundation for that to happen. And like that is the plan. And I think too, like there really is no reason that Notre Dame shouldn't be a playoff team, especially when it goes to 16.
Yeah.
Like every year. They should be one of the top 16 teams in the country.
For sure.
Every year.
Yeah. So it'll just be interesting to monitor going forward. And we will do that here on Hit and Hustle and Irish Sports Daily. That'll end it for our show today. Thank you very much. Hit the like button, hit subscribe, hit the notification bell. So whatever it is, we are going live. We're kind of in that time of year where because they're practicing now, things can pop up and we can just kind of pop up and do a show real quick. If there's something breaking or something we need to discuss, we can do that. So that's why you want to hit the notification bell. Our next scheduled show will be Monday for Power Hour with Mike Frank. And then Jamie and I will be back on Tuesday with Hit and Hustle. I'm recording a show with Dara on Dimes with Dara. I'm going to come out with that tomorrow morning. So we're going to talk about the women's bracket and the NCAA tournament, things of that nature. And then we've got the tournament coming up, and Dara and I are going to try to work on a live show reaction for those too. So hit the like, hit subscribe, hit the notification bell. We'll be talking to you soon. Have a good rest of your week. Keep hitting and hustling.